Hey everybody, I'm Dr. Todd. Welcome to the Miller Method. Today we are going to be talking about the proliferation of physique and bikini competitions for men and women. And what these are offshoots of bodybuilding that have become very popular over the past few years. And the reason for their popularity is that they require a person to have a physique that is relatively easy to attain compared to a typical bodybuilder. So a bodybuilder has a really large amount of muscle, and a men's physique competitor has a much smaller amount of muscle, but is pretty lean and has more of a fitness model type look. A bikini competitor is unlike a female bodybuilder in that the muscle mass is relatively low, but they're very lean, they look good in a bikini, and that's the whole point. So because these physiques are more attainable, the promotion of these contests has become much more widespread, and they are becoming enormously popular in the United States. Despite the fact that the body type is not really required that a bodybuilder would have, some weird dietary practices continue to persist, and I think these things have sort of carried over from the bodybuilding world, and we're talking about things like excessive carbohydrate restriction, carbohydrate depletion prior to the contest, intermittent fasting, carbohydrate backloading, carbohydrate cycling. Most of these things involve carbohydrate. And I thought to myself that this is kind of unnecessary. Why couldn't we just take somebody, train that person using legitimate training methods, but also modify their diet so that they're simply burning more calories than they're eating. And if we follow that person over a given time, they consistently create a calorie deficit, they should be able to reach a given body fat in a given amount of time. So I decided that I was going to try this myself. I thought, why don't I train for a physique competition? So I did that, and I decided that I was going to compete in the Gladiator Championships on March 21st in Baltimore. And I decided this back in November, so there was about a 16-week preparatory period that I had to get ready for this contest. And I thought that I would just use the same dieting strategies that we use for the clients who come into the lab who are interested in weight loss. So what that consisted of is a stepwise process. And the first thing that we did was we measured body fat. We measured body fat via DEXA. The second thing we did was measure resting metabolic rate to determine caloric burn. And from that data, I was able to calculate the amount of fat that I needed to lose in order to reach a body fat of 8%. And I basically just looked at pictures of physique competitors and said, they look like they're about 7 or 8%. I'm going to make 8% my target. So we then constructed a macronutrient intake. Our dietitian, Stephanie Mull, who's great, if you're in the DC area, come check her out. We constructed a macronutrient plan based on my muscle mass and my resting metabolic rate. So these weren't predictions, these were things that were actually measured. We calculated a daily calorie deficit that I needed to achieve in order to reach 8% by March 21st, that 16-week period. That daily calorie deficit came out to 340 calories. So if I could burn 340 more calories than I ate every day, on average, I should be able to get on stage at 8% body fat. I used a Fitbit to track my total calorie burn, as you know we've talked about before in other videos, and I used Fat Secret to track my food intake. So I had a really accurate way, or a fairly accurate way, more accurate than ever before, of measuring my daily calorie deficit. I followed Miller Method type workouts, which have been described previously in these videos. You can go back and look at what my workouts are. I did no cardio until 3 weeks out from the contest. So here's what happened. If we look at my macronutrient intake by month, my average calories per day was 2,653 calories. So it wasn't very calorie restrictive. My fat grams were 63, my carbohydrate was 276 grams on average, and protein 222 grams. So from a calorie restriction standpoint and from a carbohydrate restriction standpoint, it really wasn't very restrictive at all. If you look at my intake versus expenditure by month, my average calorie burn over the 4-month average per day was 3,004 calories. So I burned about 3,000 calories per day. I ate on average 2,653 calories. And that came out to an average daily deficit of 351. And remember, We're trying to reach that 340 calorie deficit. Now you can see in December and January over the holidays, I was doing my typical holiday stuff, and I wasn't creating that deficit, so I had to turn it on towards the end. But if you look at the total average over that 4 months, 351 calories per day was what I was burning. Now if we look at what happened in terms of my body fat percentage, you can see that on November 24th, right after Thanksgiving, I was 13.7% fat. I had 162 pounds of muscle and 26 pounds of fat. By the time the show rolled around on January 21st, so the day before, or March 21st, the day before the show on March 21st, I was 8.4% fat. I had 167 pounds of lean and 15 pounds of fat. So that was an 11-pound fat loss and a 5-pound muscle gain and a drop in percent fat of 5.3 over that 4-month period. Now typically what happens is people do severe calorie restriction, especially towards competition date. They lose a lot of muscle along with fat. Their body fat percentage might drop, it might stay the same. The point is they're losing muscle, and that's a bad thing. My dietary manipulation, I actually did no dietary manipulation the week up to the show. I changed nothing the day of the show, nothing the day before the show. I didn't carbohydrate deplete, I didn't dehydrate myself. I just ate the exact same diet that I had been eating for the past 4 months. And on March 21st, I got on stage at the Gladiator, and I was 8.4% fat, and I ended up taking 4th place in my class. So I think the point is here that it's not really necessary, in my opinion, to do the extreme type of dieting that most people do when they prepare for these competitions. So if you're interested in competition prep, or if you're interested in any of the weight loss programs here at the lab, please send me an email, contact us via the web, and we'll get you straightened out. Thanks.